ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Teaching Conversations. Now, today we're going to be talking about Thrive, and we're going to be talking about student services. And so I brought an expert because I am not an expert in all of these areas. So I wanted to make sure I brought you an expert. So let's go ahead and meet our expert for the day.
My name is Tay Tay, and I work in our Student Success Center. I am one of the student success coaches, so I help students with advising and any other things that might come up during their time here at Richland. And I also serve as the Starfish administrator on campus. That's where the expertise comes in. And I'll just be talking a little bit today about how we use Thrive, how we leverage it for student success, and just trying to help hopefully get you comfortable with using it. And just so everyone is aware, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about Thrive. I am that point of contact, or Matthew could connect you with me. Either one works. But
Absolutely.
Right, well,
Okay, so that was a lot of words, and I need help with a few of them. Number one, student services. The good news is we have an entirely separate teaching conversation on student services, so you guys need to make sure you take a look at that one. So underneath that broad student services banner, you mentioned Thrive, you mentioned Starfish. Which one of those would be considered the more overarching?
So those are actually the same thing. Starfish is the name of the software that we use, and our version of Starfish, we call it Thrive. So you will hear me use those two interchangeably. They are the same software.
Hey, I'm learning something already. Okay, so Starfish is the program, the software. Thrive is Richland's program that we're going to use. But Thrive is also a process and a procedure. Is that correct?
Yes, and we mainly use it now as an early alert system. So where adjunct instructors will come in, we do progress surveys every semester. And what those are is, it's any class that you're teaching, you have basically a report, and there's just a list of items. We call them flags that you can raise for students. And what happens is you raise the flag, you complete your surveys for the class or classes that you're teaching, and then that starts off a bit of a workflow with the success coaches where we follow up with students and address those concerns. And I'm going to start sharing. Is that okay?
Awesome. That's great.
Because maybe this will help.
And while you're kicking that off, one thing we need to remember is this is progress monitoring. So often as teachers, we think, oh, you want me to fill something out? I'm grading somebody. We're not grading anybody. This is how they doing. This is what's going on, so that we then therefore can help them be successful when it comes time for grading. And I think we're going to see a lot of that here.
So just to kind of make sense of what we use Thrive for, this is a great slide. Increase persistence, retention, and success. So like Matthew said, you're not grading the students. It's just, we want to help students address problems that they may be having with coursework or anything else before they become bigger problems. So that's why we have our flag tiers. So you're going to hear me throw around flags a lot, because that's what the items on the progress surveys are called. And here is a little bit of a timeline. This is the timeline we use for spring for progress surveys. So 16-week, 12-week classes have 2 progress surveys. So that's 2 touch points throughout the semester where you're going and saying, hey, this is how these students in my classes are doing. And 8-week courses have 1. So if there's a student having an issue outside of progress survey time, please don't let that deter you from raising a flag. You are able to manually raise flags on students too. But these progress surveys, those are the surefire. They'll come once or twice a semester. And here are some of the flags you will see. And for each student that you have in your class, you'll have the option to raise any of these flags. I know it says raise only 1 flag, but you have the option to raise any of these.
So if I'm looking at my options here, improvement needed, that's pretty explanatory. Attendance concern, also fairly self-explanatory. in danger of not being successful. Now I notice that you say urgent there. So that one would be kind of kicked to the top of the pile.
Yes, and we have these, what do we call them? Levels of advisory action needed urgent, because we have a workflow connected to it. And there's also a document showing that in nice, pretty colors. And I have that one next. But there's also a kudos. So for student, because we used to have a time where professors would put in a flag for every student, or they felt compelled to do that because, we think, there's a progress survey. Every student needs something. So we have this keep up the good work for those students who you don't necessarily have an academic or attendance concern about, and just want to let them know they're doing well.
Excellent.
These are some flags and referrals that are also available in the system that aren't having to do with academic concerns. These are just things like if you want the success coach to reach out to a student has expressed to you they have a technology concern. You raise a flag saying technology concern, that triggers the success coach to start that conversation with the student.
I noticed that we're addressing the whole student here, not just their grades. Are students getting an A or a B or a C? Technology concerns, for example. That is something that is beyond potentially the student's control,
Right.
but it's definitely going to affect their ability to be successful.
Yes. So yeah, there's food insecurity, if any, because sometimes students spend more time with their professors. They have more face-to-face contact, and they might be a little more comfortable telling their professor things. And if you are not sure who to refer them to or where to start, a Thrive flag would be a great place to go and let the success coach know to start facilitating that conversation. When we're addressing, for example, an urgent flag, because those are usually things the student's grade is, they're in danger of not being successful, or the student is, for whatever reason, not doing well in the class. And this is just a template. Upon evaluating your progress and grade, your instructor recommends withdrawing at this time. We encourage you to follow the steps below. And this is just so instructors can know what chain of events they're triggering once they raise a flag. And this is how we would respond to them, the success coaches. When you raise a flag, just being mindful that there are some things that the students can see, and you don't ever want to possibly deter a student from wanting to ask you for help or work with you because they can see that you have talked negatively about them in your comment section, because you'll get to raise the flag, but there will also be a chance for comments just to provide a little more information to the success coach. So just want to be mindful of what you're saying in your comments.
So one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing as instructors is that we are making sure that we're still keeping the student's best interest at heart. What we're wanting to do is we're wanting to be as encouraging as possible, even though sometimes the news that we send may not always be the best news.
Yes, that is just so you recognize the terms you're saying. We have these tiers of flags. So they're advisory flags, action needed flags, and urgent flags. And then here you can see what type of flags fall under that advisory category. So improvement needed and kudos. Go ahead.
I really like this slide because even having talked to your predecessor about Thrive was still a work in progress. It was still launching, it was still moving forward. And now it helps me as an instructor who's used Thrive to see, oh, okay, there's kind of three levels here. There's kind of green, yellow, red here.
Yes.
And, we have advisory, kudos. Okay, that's fine. Improvement needed isn't a bad thing. That's just here's how it can be helpful. But then you start
a professor might raise an improvement needed flag if they say, this student is getting a B in the class, but I feel like with XYZ, they could raise their grade. And that's something where it's not necessarily a concern, but it's just the professor saying, here's some tips.
Here's a path forward. Here's some ways you can improve, versus we get down into attendance concern, financial aid referral, technology, as we mentioned previously. There's action, but those things are frankly outside of the student's control for some of those. and maybe some of them are or aren't. And that's where student services can really give a broader picture than maybe
Yes,
I, as an instructor by myself, would have.
right. And these, if you look at the action needed flags, the attendance concern is one of the only ones related to class, while everything else is things that the success coach would touch base about. So financial aid, tutoring, referrals, technology concern, and career exploration, those all fall under that umbrella of student services.
Well, and those are things that student services has a little broader perspective on and can hook that student up with the right person to help mediate or solve that problem. Whereas a professor, especially an adjunct or someone who only sees the person once a week or whatever it happens to be, that's not something we can necessarily do. Now, urgent though, those are things that really we need to be getting sorted super fast. And I notice you have like text message, phone call. There's a real timeline on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love this because it tells us if the student doesn't respond to our text in 2 days or however long, we have to call them. And if they don't answer the phone call, we email them. And it also helps that because we close the flag. So when a professor raises a flag, that's opening a flag and signaling this workflow to start. And sometimes we are not always able to successfully get into contact with the student. So just knowing that there are some instances where flags will be closed unsuccessfully and what that means. It usually just means we weren't able to get into contact with the student directly.
Well, and the reality is in education, regardless of what role you're playing in it, we can only do so much. But the point is, at this point, we have determined and we have noted and documented, we've done what we can. And 9 times out of 10, doing what we can is enough to make positive change. But there are times that it's simply not successful. And
Yep.
that's okay. That's not on the professor. That's not
Right,
on
yeah.
the student success coach. That's just the process, and we've worked the process together.
And here is another picture of that, the flag tiers and that workflow management that we
Honestly, I
worked out
like
in
the
Scrum.
first slide better. This is
Okay.
a lot of words. But I mean, it is good to know that it's all in one spot. But I really like the previous slide. That was information that even having gone through this before, I did not know.
Yeah. And this one is just more for your own records, and it just has a more flushed out description of when you would raise a flag. And because there can be overlap. A student could also, they could be having attendance concerns and this one. So this just helps you try to figure out which flag is most appropriate for
Absolutely.
the student situation. The way to get directly to Thrive and log in, you'll log into your My Richland, and under the quick links on the left side here, there's a link to Richland Thrive. You'll click on that and it will have you log in with your Richland credentials, like the same way you log into Canvas or My
Okay.
Richland. And it's not going to show you that for me because I'm already logged in, but
That makes
yes.
sense.
So this is yours. I am mirroring you, and that's something
Okay.
that as an admin, I have permission to do that. No one else can do that.
Gotcha.
So no worries. Close. And we don't have an active progress survey right now, but this is how it will look to an instructor once they get in to Thrive and get past that scheduling page. To get to your students and search your students, you click this little, what I like to call hamburger menu on the left-hand side, and then you can come down here and click directly onto students. And then it will take you to a hub where you can access all of your students. It's based on these filters, so it will show you all of your students. So this search bar, this is how you can go and search for any student. And this is my profile. And this is how it will look when you access any student. To get to a flag, you can either raise it here, go to tracking to see flags. This is where they will go. And I'm going to raise a flag for you just to show for me on your profile just to show what that looks like.
Gotcha.
So
So it seems as if you do not have access to textbooks. Is that the flag we're going to raise?
yes.
There we go. Okay, so Tamisha in my class does
And it'll
not have-
ask what course is this for,
Right.
because I didn't go directly through the course.
Gotcha.
But
So
and
mine would
I'm-
show like Math 098 there. So if
Yeah.
you were in my Math 098, that's what you would see right there.
yeah, and in this drop down will be all of the connections that you have with the students. So if they're in your 098 or another math class, it will ask you, you know,
Gotcha.
what class is it for? And comments. So when you're making comments, this is what the student sees. So the student can
Right.
see this comment, whatever you put in this comment box. So that's where I say, just be mindful of the things you say. Just, you know, don't want to be too negative or say student has no chance of being successful. That, you know, that's what we don't want to see.
Right.
Let's see.
So we want to be informative and helpful, but also encouraging when at all possible.
It might be a good idea to meet with financial aid or something like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And then you save.
And then it would show up in the tracking once it has gone through the process. Because more
Yes,
than
and-
likely, it will take a few minutes for that to go through, but it would show up in the tracking component.
Yes. So any flag that you have raised, you go to this tracking tab to keep track of it. See the comments that the success coaches have left, and also you should get an email every time there's any activity on the flag.
Gotcha.
Students
Gotcha.
also get an email when a flag is raised for them. They will get an email about that. So just be mindful of that as well. So this is where you go for progress surveys. There aren't any active right now.
Right. And those are normally done in the longer classes, so the 16 and 12 week. You normally do it about twice, usually about a third of the way through the class and then just after midterm. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Spot on. Let me see. We have our survey date, but they change every semester because we go by the academic calendar. But yeah, like halfway through the first few weeks and halfway through, and then we don't have a progress survey at the end, but that's usually a time where professors raise flags here and there.
Right.
But just know that you can raise a flag at any time. We love to do progress surveys, but you can raise them at any time.
In that case, let's start kind of tying off our discussion because our goals here are pretty simple. Our goals here are to connect students with however they need to get assistance. To do that, we have the professor who either does progress surveys or raises flags as needed. And then those flags, they're taken by student success and addressed and either communicated directly to the student or communicated to the departments in which they might need of assistance. So they might get financial aid involved. They may get the business office involved. They may get technology services involved. Whatever area that we need to do, because student services, as we've talked about before, and we'll talk about again, student services is kind of a clearinghouse for services for students. That's why it's called that.
Yes.
It's how we're going to get them connected to whatever they need to be successful. Absolutely. Well, Tamisha, thank you so much for joining me. And of course, they can reach you via email. And
Yes.
what is your email?
My email address is THYD as in dog, ER @richland.edu. Hyder@richland.edu.
There you go. All right. And so I really appreciate you being with us. This is one of those areas in which we can always improve. We can always make better connections with students. And the more we can connect with each other as colleagues to help students, the better off we're going to be as a college.
Yes. And Thrive is a really great tool to promote cross-campus communication. And that's what we love about it. Yeah, and the students, it's very great for the students because they have a place where they can see all of this necessary information, connect with resources in one spot.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
All right. And like I said, if you have any questions or if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me. All right.
All right, and that concludes this teaching conversation, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure that you check in your module for some of those links that have been shared, a couple contact pieces of information, and also make sure that you as a teacher are thinking about how can we make all of our Richland students successful? And that could be a variety of opportunities. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one.